Hey YouTube, so the first thing that I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to be working on a 97 Saturn SL, and it needs a lot of work done to it. I believe it's got a salvage title, and some of the things that we are going to be doing are, I'm going to be replacing the EGR valve with the gasket. I've got the O2 sensor after the catalytic converter. I have the crankshaft sensor. And then I have some spark plugs, some new boots that need to be put on, and then a valve gasket. That needs to go on as well. As you can see, with the old spark plug boots, when I took them off, they got stuck. So, I believe the fuel injector needs to be, all of them need to be replaced also. I'm going to put some fuel injector cleaner through it just to see if it helps, but I'm pretty sure that whole thing needs to get replaced. That's a video for another time. So one of the things I'm going to be doing is taking out these top two screws, removing some hoses. The EGR valve is right back here. So I guess let's just get started. Okay, for this 97 Saturn, removing the spark plugs. Now, we've got oil all over some of them, and you can see that there's a lot of dirt. Oil is definitely not a good sign. You should not have boots with oil on them. And I know you guys won't be able to see it, but there's two with those little metal housings inside, and two that are completely empty because they got ripped off. And rather than just buying one, I'm replacing the whole thing. So take them off. I'll connect there over the spark plugs, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 over the coil packs. Your coil packs may be bad, you can just remove them and put new ones on. So for these spark plugs, it's going to be a 5/8 socket. Use an extension with it, it's easier, you don't have to. Hopefully they're not seized on there. Now, I bought the socket that has the special spark plug boot rubber insert on the inside, and what it does is that boot or rubber insert holds on to the end of the spark plug. It's a little dirty right now, but you can see the little rubber insert on the inside, and it holds onto it and pulls the spark plug out for you. For being an old car, not sure if they've ever been replaced, but it looks like they might have been. Auto light. These are a little old. They're not. That one's not too bad. This one out, and there's oil all over this one. So this is going to be one of my problem areas once I take the valve cover off. Two is bad. Oil all over this one. You can see it right in there. Actually, looks like it's gapped a little too high there. See the gap between the first one. There's almost nothing there. Second one, it's a little angled even. I wonder who did these. Third one's got a huge gap also. I want to say the gap is supposed to be 0.40. I'll have to double check that. This one's not even in all the way. That's more like the gap that you're supposed to have. There's oil on this one also. I'm pretty sure that there is a faulty valve cover gasket in there. Now that those are out, you want to take a hex head or a diamond head. Right now I happen to have a hex head. And we're going to remove these two screws. They go into the valve cover. Just pop right up. Looks like that. Don't throw these away. Don't lose them. Make sure you know where to keep it. Engine cap off, oil cap. Okay, there's a small 5/16 nut back here, a hex head nut. Take that off. I would take it off and then I would just leave the bolt sitting back in the hole. What it does is it's holding this little rail on. Shouldn't be too much to get that off. That little bracket out of the way. So I don't lose this, and put it right back. Disconnect this little rubber hose from the engine. Get that out of the way for now, and I think that's it. It's just barely held on, other than a gasket. Just take a little screwdriver, and that should not have come up that easy. I'll tell you that right now. You want to make sure that this comes off. There we go. Tell you what, this is not the right part to have. It's just a piece of pipe, little rubber piping. The only thing holding this on now is a rubber gasket. Okay, this is the new gasket that I got for the car. A little bit. And this is the gasket, and I want you to see the difference between what this looks like and what's actually in there. And you can see it's completely smashed and corroded in. Look at that. That's bad. Not good, for sure. It should not just... This is horrible. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take a scraper or an X-Acto knife. I'm going to scrape all this off the whole way around. See how that goes in there? There's a little lip on here, and it sits right inside that lip. But this is so old, it's just all completely corroded. So what happens is the oil fits through the cracks once the engine's hot, and it leaks out completely, just like this, and you end up having like nothing left. I'm going to go through here and I'm going to clean up all of this. Make sure that there's a clean surface for the new gasket to sit on. And I'll come back and we'll put the new gasket on. I wanted to show you a little clip of all this buildup around the old gasket. It's all gotta come off. A new gasket would not have come off like that. You just gotta scrape it out of that little groove. And get the whole thing out of there. Be very careful when you do this not to cut yourself, because it's easy to think that you're fine going right along the guide rail and it slips, so let's not be able to pull all this out. But just go through with the little scraper or an X-Acto knife. You need to get this whole surface clean. Another thing you can try doing is just taking a flathead screwdriver that fits between the two rails, the two little lips in there, and just scraping the whole thing off. Works real easy. These bends are very tough to get through, so just be careful. Make sure you get everything. So now what I'm going to do, since I have the valve cover off, and I've got it in the kitchen sink and it's soaking in degreaser, trying to get off 19 years of grease and oil and everything else, I'm going to replace the EGR valve. This is the new one. It also comes with the gasket. You can get them online. That's where I got all my stuff shipped to me. Actually, all of it came in early, so that made me happy. It's got a little clip on the top. We're just going to take that off. It's located right back here. A little clip. I'll show you in a second. Take the clip out, and then there's going to be two 10mm bolt heads back there. It's positioned like this. You just reach the socket down into there and take out the 10mm bolt heads. So we're going to do that now. Just got a long socket, an extension, not a long socket, short socket with an extension on it. You can use a long socket. I think I have one right here. Break this loose. Be fairly short little studs. If it makes it easier for you, you can remove this housing. There's more stuff I would have to take off, so I'm not going to do that. Like 3. Probably just use my hand and take it out now. Little clip off. Comes right out. A little tab on it. What I like to use when I can't get down somewhere and reach, a little magnet. There's the little bolt on it. So this one's done. do not need power tools to do this, but you're not going to be able to use an open head wrench either. You're going to have to use hand sockets. There you go. Number 2. Now that that's out, just pull right up. This is the original gasket also, so this whole thing is just garbage. Make sure it's clean, nothing's on it, because the new gasket's going to sit right on top of it. Okay, so now we're going to put the new EGR valve in there. Just make sure you line up your holes, your 10mm bolts. The hole that fits the hole down in the center there. Make sure you line this up. This hole's smaller than this one. Big hole, small hole. Make sure you line those up when you put it down on the valve. Okay, line it up. Set the new one on top. Take our bolts and we're going to line it back in there, right in the hole. Drop it in the hole and spin it just to get a couple threads in there. See how it just stops? I don't want to put any force on there. I want to get the other one on all the way as well. Because if you get the threads messed up, probably going to have to take it to the dealer to get it re-threaded, and you don't want to do that. It's a lot of money. Almost done. Okay, now it's what I consider finger tight, so you can go ahead and tighten this one all the way. And once it stops, a little bit more, no more than that. You over tighten these and it cracks the housing, or it cracks the part, you're spending more money. You take this clip and clip it right back in there into the new one. And you'll hear it clip. You hear it click in there. Good. Okay, now what I like to do when I work with valve covers and gaskets and replacing old gaskets and everything, just make sure you get it dry. I've been soaking this in degreaser and I rinsed it out. It's not obviously all the way clean, but I don't know if you saw it earlier, it was way worse than this. So make sure it's completely dry. Make sure there's nothing along these seal the whole way around. And what I like to use is Forma gasket sealant. You don't have to use this exact brand as long as it's a gasket maker. And you'll read online and you'll see online in videos that they don't require you to use this, but it is something that I use every time that I'm working with this because it is an engine. If something happens with that new blue gasket and it slides over just the slightest bit and you don't catch it and you don't see it, and your customer, your cousin, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, whoever is driving their car and that gasket breaks, you're going to be doing this entire thing again. You're going to have to scrape the whole thing out again. So I suggest you use it. Doesn't have to be brown, doesn't have to be gray. Make sure it is for engines. You just want a small, little tiny 1mm thickness. Doesn't have to be completely flat. It's just going to hold that gasket to the lid. Okay? Like I said, I use this every time. Okay, so now that you have the gasket creator on there, we're going to take this and we're going to go put it on the engine where the new gasket is already at, and I'll show you that, and we'll be right back. Okay, so now that that new gasket's on there, you can see I put it on the entire way around, and you're going to have these two little tabs over here are going to be in the shape of a Z. Two go inside the engine and two are on the outside, so that when you put the valve cover back on, it's going to rest right against those. All the rest of these face down into the engine, or they're down but on the outside of the engine. Now don't let your gasket creator sit too long. It will get hard and you're going to have to peel it all off and put new stuff on again. Put this back on. Start on the left. Drop it down to the right. Just go around and make sure it's completely on. You'll be able to feel it. And flush. Now that that is on, we're going to take our hex heads again. Put them in and make sure you line it up with the hole that's on the inside, and you can hand tighten it down. Do that for both of these. There we go. You'll feel it drop in. Okay, screw these back in. Like I said before with the bolts, just take them till they're just tight and then finish with the other one. You don't want to over tighten one. Tighten them both down so that the lid doesn't come off. Put your PVC pipe back on. A little rubber hose. Put your cap on. Now you're going to want to let the engine sit for a little while to let that gasket seal all the way. And I think the last thing we have to do right now is put the new spark plugs in, put the boots back on, and let it sit. So now what we want to do is take our spark plugs and we're going to put some anti-seize. You really don't need a whole lot because it's going to spin once it's actually down in the hole. And these spark plugs for this 97 Saturn are gapped at 0.04. So now we're going to take the ratchet and put it down in the boot that I told you was in there. It's going to hold on to it. It holds on to it. Just drop it down into the hole, and I recommend you finger tighten these until they stop. You definitely do not want to over tighten spark plugs, because if you jack up the threads on that inside the engine, it's going to cost you 2 arms and 2 legs to get your engine rethreaded just for spark plugs. And that's not what you want to do. 2. Mm-hmm. How's that? Make sure they're just nice and snug. And then you're going to do a small turn. You don't want to over tighten these. I would just turn it about 1 inch until they're tight. If you use a lot of muscle in this, You're going to snap them off in there. And then you might as well just get a whole new engine. Okay, those are good. Okay, so now we're going to hook the spark plugs up with the new boots that we got online. And they go for the spark plug for the coils. It's 4, 1, 2, and 3. 3 being the farthest, 4 being the closest. So you're going to take your little L boot, and that one goes on 4, the closest one, and you'll feel it snap in there. It'll be like a little click. And for this, it goes 4, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so 4 is the shortest. You'll feel this click in there also. It snaps right in. The longest boot's going to be 1. You're going to take your 1 little L, snap it into your second slot, click. And this is going to come over and it's going to reach to 1. And it'll click in there. 2 is the second longest, same thing. Little L connector. It's going to go on the second to last slot. You'll feel it click. That's going to go into cylinder 2, spark plug 2. You'll feel it click in there. And the very last one is 3. Same thing, it's going to go in the third slot. Now, just for all the new people working on cars, never pull spark plug boots out by their wire. This will eventually, since the car gets hot in here, it's going to eventually melt, and if you go to pull this out, you're going to get your whole boot stuck in there. So when you go to pull it out, make sure you pull it out by the housing, the rubber housing. You'll feel it click, and it'll pop out. I don't know if you could hear that. Just like that. It's got a little suction on it. Okay? And that's the spark plugs. Well, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments below, and I will reply back to you. Thanks.